What's up, Halas Huddlers? I am excited about this episode. It has taken some time to get this scheduled, but we have a special guest joining us today to dive into the Chicago Bears stadium situation again. Where do things stand today? Is Illinois still failing, or will they make a heroic comeback like the Bears did on so many occasions last season? I'm Rob Schwarz with Bear Goggles On. This is the Halas Huddle, where the stadium location changes more than Packers fans' excuses. But before we get into it, I just want to remind everyone, look, we have a special giveaway going on right now. All you have to do is subscribe to this channel, okay? You're coming to this, you've never subscribed before. Hit the subscribe button now, then go over to Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, I don't care, and search up Tally Brand, TALLEYBRAND, okay, at Tally Brand. Follow him, okay? And you will get a chance to win this amazing, one of these two, you get to pick one, amazing phone cases. If for some reason that phone case does not work for you, we have a hat giveaway instead. So check out all that merch at tallybrand.com. This is just a partnership. There's no paid agreements or anything like that. This is just a great guy. You can check out the interview that I did with him earlier in the week, who is a fan who just decided to create his own merchandise. And he's honestly, he is one of the most down-to-earth, just small business owners that I've worked with or spoken to. So definitely check out his stuff, even if you don't win. Great merchandise. All right, let's bring in our guest. Colin.
Hey, what's going on?
I appreciate you coming on. I know that this has taken some time, but you had some more important things that you were working on last week. So again, I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. Just a real quick intro. Okay, this is Colin Corbett. He's an independent candidate for governor of Illinois, okay, who has become one of the more outspoken voices on the Chicago Bears stadium situation. While many politicians have avoided taking a firm position on the issue, Colin has publicly weighed in on everything from Arlington Heights to the possibility of the Bears leaving Illinois altogether. He is bringing logic. This is the biggest thing. Like, I connected with him on social media, and logic is what I'm noticing the most in our conversations that I'm not seeing or hearing from any other side, except for maybe here on the Halas Huddle. But before we get into stadiums, politics, and the future of the Bears, I want our audience to get to know you a little bit better. So for Bears fans who may be hearing your name for the first time, tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background? What got you into politics? And why you have decided that now is the time to run for governor of Illinois?
You know, I like your lead in about common sense. So I've been in politics for 20 years. I've recruited and trained over 3,500 candidates around the country. I've run over 850 campaigns. This is what I do and what I have done. But I've just become increasingly frustrated with the lack of logic and common sense when it comes to our politics. You know, we see situations like the Bears, or pick any other political issue, which I won't do because this isn't a political podcast, but pick any of these political issues. And honestly, you take 5, 6, 7 reasonable people, put them around the table, and we can solve them in 5 minutes. The only thing that leads to the lack of progress is the partisanship and the hatred and the two-party system itself. And that's what I came to understand, is there's good people on both sides. But the fact that we even have sides is the problem. That is the very definition of the problem. The founding fathers warned us not to do political parties. George Washington in his farewell address said, don't do this, and we did it anyways. Because they predicted that this is what would happen, that we end up being focused more on our team and beating the other side than on actually getting things done. And so I was getting increasingly disillusioned. And so I decided to start to build something that was separate, that was different. So we're building an independent movement in Illinois. We're launching it with this run for governor. I'm up against a billionaire. The odds of me winning, I know, are pretty slim. But if we can get the conversation around solutions and actually making people's lives better, because as we'll talk about today, this Bears stadium situation is actually not very complicated, but politicians have made it complicated with politics. You remove that from the equation, this thing is super simple to solve. And that's a microcosm of all of the problems we face in Illinois. This state is primed to take off. We have the best workers. This isn't just me kissing up to my voters. It's truth. We have been ranked over and over as having the best workers in the country because we've got the Midwestern work ethic combined with big city energy throughout the state. And so people want our workers. We have all sorts of advantages, and yet we're held back. We're not thriving when we should be. This should be the capital of the Midwest, both from a football standpoint and from an economic standpoint and a social standpoint. And I think we can get there if we just get politics out of the way. So that's my motivation. That's why I'm an independent. I'm sick and tired of the politics. Let's go get some stuff done.
I love it. I love it. It's honestly the biggest frustration that I have with politics as a whole. And I try not to do identity politics because, to your point, like having an identity of Republican or Democrat, it means nothing if solutions aren't actually happening.
Yep.
One thing that we've learned over the years covering the Bears is that everyone has a story. Okay. What would you want Illinois voters and specifically Bears fans listening today to know about Colin Corbett beyond the campaign website and headlines? Maybe more importantly, how did you become a Bears fan?
Yeah, I mean, my origin story from the Bears side also tells you why there's always been friction between my father and I, because he grew up went to Barrington High School with Gary Fensick, who was the kicker for the Bears during the legendary season. And actually, my dad had sideline tickets to the Super Bowl from his friend Gary Fensick, but he couldn't go. He was stuck in the hospital with my mother because she was giving birth to me. So he has never, ever forgiven me for that. And now that I'm old enough to understand how precious that would have been, especially considering that was a once in a lifetime opportunity, unfortunately, I do understand, Dad, why, you and I maybe haven't always gotten along. I've ruined a lot of things for my poor old man, but that's when I became a Bears fan. And that's when I learned that sometimes you have to make big sacrifices for the people you love.
That's an awesome story.
So yeah, I mean, the good news is I can always remember when the Bears won the Super Bowl because it lines up pretty well with my birthday.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I was a couple years earlier. My dad was not lucky enough to go. My grandparents were actually there, and he was able to at least go to the 2006 Super Bowl. Unfortunately, he didn't get to his seats in time to see the Devin Hester. Yep, he missed it. He missed it live. There was an issue. Someone stole his ticket after they got inside the stadium. Someone stole his ticket, and when he was trying to go down, they let my mother go down, and he was not able to go because he didn't have the physical ticket. It took them a good 30 minutes to get it sorted out, and then he was finally able to go down because no one ended up going down to the seat. I think they just wanted the ticket for like resale or something.
I feel like that's the kind of thing you just don't get over. I mean, I would be so angry.
Yeah, my mom got to watch it though, so she was happy.
All right, there you go. But I like to say you turn certain things off like at a certain point. Like I always cheer for the bad guy. So my wife loves Harry Potter, and I always say I turn it off after Voldemort wins. That's the end. That's the end of the series right there. Or Game of Thrones, you just turn it off after season 8, episode 3. That's it. That's the end. Same with like the Super Bowl. I watched Devin Hester with the kick of the return. That's it. That was the end. There was no more.
They won
after that. That was over. Yeah.
Yeah. I like rewriting history.
That's how I'm going to show it to my little boy.
That's right. You launched your campaign outside of Arlington Park. Obviously, that wasn't accidental. Why that location?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit personal for us. My wife and I got married at Arlington Park. Ironically enough, we had our reception in the governor's room, so that works for foreshadowing. But I also have a family history there. My dad was a jockey at Arlington Park. We used to do outings there. I'm 6'3", so nobody believes my dad was a jockey until I show them photos. It is the truth, but nobody believes it. So the Arlington Park location has always meant a lot to us. But I also think it's a perfect picture for the state of Illinois. You know, as we've looked at, you know, the Arlington Park location, that site. I mean, it's just a grassy field now. I mean, it was busted down. The park is gone. You know, that really symbolizes how Illinois has been now for a few decades, as we've been lagging behind our neighbors, lagging behind the rest of the country when it comes to, you know, economic growth, wage growth, opportunities, and you know, it's been frustrating for a lot of people. People feel stuck, and they really just don't understand why. But I also think it shows the hope that is the future for Illinois, the potential for that site, whether it's a Bears stadium or maybe it's a practice facility, or even if they give up and it's just a bunch of condos or something is going to go there. And I really do truly believe that Illinois has tremendous potential. And so for me, that site really, really symbolizes the struggles of our state's past, but the potential, the massive potential of our future if we just get our act together.
I like that answer. And that's awesome that you have that connection specifically to the Arlington Park location itself. And congratulations to you and your wife for getting married there. That's a cool story to have as well. You have some really cool stories. I like it.
You know, they say the best communicators are storytellers, and I inherited that gift. So I don't have a lot of other skills, but I can tell stories.
All right. Before we shift to the stadium discussion, this is probably the largest audience, or at least this week, maybe of Bears fans you'll speak to. If someone listening only knows 2 or 3 things about your campaign, and I know this isn't a political podcast, but feel free to share, and your vision for Illinois, what would you want those things to be?
Yeah, and I'm going to keep it super brief. I mean, I could go on and on about what I want to do for Illinois. I gave it was like a 20, 30-minute speech at my announcement about all the things we want to get done. We have a whole platform on our website of specifically what we are going to do to make your lives better, because I'm sick and tired of these politicians who are either all talk or no talk, but zero action. If you look at my opponents, Pritzker's website has literally 0 words on what he's going to do the next 4 years, because frankly, his focus is on running for president. It's not even on being our governor. And the Republican candidate has 4 AI-generated paragraphs. That's all he's got. We have 5 pages full of policies and what we're going to do to make your life better. Here's the quick summary. 3 things we're going to do for you. We're going to make life more affordable, because it is too damn unaffordable for working families in this state. We're going to lower costs. And again, we've got a whole plan to do it, so I'm not going to go any deeper into this, even though I wish I could. Second, we're going to get Illinois growing again. We've got to make this state open for business, because that's going to create good paying jobs, more jobs. That's how we raise our wages in this state. And since J.B. Pritzker has been governor, we've been anywhere between 43rd and 46th in GDP growth in the entire country. That's unacceptable. We need to grow again so we can create those jobs and we can all make more money. The last thing is reform. We're going to reform the broken government and political system. That's why the benefit of me being an independent, we're starting a whole independent movement. It's more than just me. We've got hundreds of people who are involved in this, who are high-level leaders throughout the state, who've had enough with the 2-party system and want to reform our broken system. Again, full details on the website, Colin for Illinois. Jump on in there or connect with me on socials. I love talking politics. I love talking policy. I'm happy to dive into it more, but I know we want to talk Bears, so I'll shut up about policy.
No, I appreciate that. I'll put your link to the website in the description for anyone who does want to check that out on their own. And then also, I will also put the link to his social media account on Twitter. You can follow him there and continue this discussion for anything that you want to talk Bears, or even outside of Bears. Like I said, I mean, he's been doing a lot on there. Great follow, so make sure you're following him. Those links will be in the description, easy to find. All right. Let's get into the stadium. I know that's what everyone's here to listen to. Where do you honestly think stands right now today between the Bears, Illinois, Arlington Heights, Chicago, Indiana, McCook? I mean, every little podunk little location that they're just going to throw out there to try to make things look better.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you this. I don't watch daytime soaps for this reason, because it seems like the drama just gets way too much. And everyone I talk to, that's where they're at. I mean, I love the Bears, and I've been vocal since day one about how we need to get this done in Illinois. But even I'm starting to feel like, I mean, I care. Don't get me wrong, but like I'm starting to have those little feelings of like whatever, like because everyone's just done with the drama, and I think that's the baseline here. Obviously, Indiana's in the pole position now, but what people don't realize is it was Indiana state legislators and their governor who crafted this legislation and made the deal, but it was contingent on the counties and the local municipalities all passing the different tax hikes and funding sources to make this happen. And many of those local governments have been balking and either not passing it, or in some cases, elected officials who backed the deal got wiped out in their election. So there is drama on the Indiana side. And so this is not a done deal. There is an opportunity for Illinois to come in and actually get this done. The problem is even 3 years in, Illinois doesn't seem to have any interest in actually doing that. You've got a few lawmakers, to their credit, who seem to want to put something together, but the rest are either dragging their feet or, in Governor Pritzker's side, talking out of both sides of their mouth. I mean, Pritzker's saying, no, we're having conversations, and they're going to work on a deal, they're going to work on a bill and bring it to us. And then Bears sources are saying, no, actually, we've already told you what we want, just get it done. Like, this has been the miscommunication, and everyone's done it wrong. The Bears do own some of the blame here as well, and I'm happy to get into that. But I'm the politics guy, so I'm going to put the blame on the politicians who are screwing this up. And what drives me crazy, and I know this drives you crazy too, Rob, is that the solution is not that complicated. The ask here was not that big. People are fighting over things that aren't even on the table. And so this was made overly complicated for no reason. A deal could be struck pretty quickly. And if you had a governor in Illinois who was leading, then that deal would be struck. But what people got to realize is it's politics that is driving this entire thing. J.B. Pritzker wants to be president. To do so, he has to run in a presidential primary on the Democratic side. You're not going to win a presidential primary in today's progressive Democratic Party if you're the guy who gave billionaires a handout for their stadium. And even though that's not what's on the table, that's how this would get spun in a Democratic primary. And so politics is what's holding up J.B. Pritzker. And I get it. Since I've done politics for 20 years, I understand that, but that doesn't make it okay. At some point, you got to say, you know what? I'm the governor of Illinois. I'm going to get this done, even if it hurts my future political ambitions. But right now, that's the impediment on Pritzker's side. And the Springfield has all said it. They've all said he's not there in the room. And something this big to get done, it requires a leader like Pritzker or the mayor of Chicago. But let's be real, the mayor of Chicago isn't overly popular, even on his own block, let alone down in Springfield. So he ain't going to get it done. If Pritzker doesn't engage, this thing probably doesn't get done.
No, in fact, the mayor has kind of caused more issues than he has been helping. So
yeah.
It's interesting.
There's reason for that, which I could share, but you let me know when you want to get into that.
Well, and it's interesting that you say that too, because, he's trying to run a presidential campaign and he doesn't want to give the handouts to billionaires. But we're now seeing a situation where had they worked on this 3 years ago, the Bears would have been paying probably the highest property tax bill. I mean, and I'm saying like a fair, if they did it the right way, a fair property tax bill. So let's say $14-15 million range at this point compared to any other stadium in the United States. And yet now it's more likely that they're going to pay zero.
Yeah.
So you went from getting 14-ish million to now getting zero. It makes you look bad on that part as well. And I've laid this out 100,000 times on how I think this could have been done in such a way. And I do property tax. That's what I do. This is how I got into this. Okay. I started covering this in 2021 when they actually bid and won the property. But there's a way to literally set a pilot program, make them pay whatever it is, $10 million, and then whatever the land value is. So that gets you up to that $14 million range. And I know I had Brian Costin on the show. He's another guy who is on the hardcore Republican side. And his issue is they can attach this to the levy, right? They can take that full value of $2 billion, whatever $5 billion ends up getting inflated to, and they can attach that to the levy because that's how the Illinois tax system works. And then they can attach that to, or then they're going to have to that'll get passed on to the taxpayers, right? Where in reality, in my thinking, you just back into whatever that fair market value is from whatever that pilot program is, and that's the only thing that can be levied, and then it's fair, and none of the taxpayers are getting taxed on it. There's so many and that's just one way. There's so many logical ways.
I mean, the problem is so many people are creating their straw man arguments. I mean, you mentioned one of them who, is ignoring the fact that all of those local boards are elected by the people. If they were to do the thing that he's claiming they're going to do, they would all get wiped out at their next election. None of them are going to do that. And in fact, I know many of the board members for those local taxing bodies, and many of them are hardline, strong fiscal conservatives. There's no way they would ever dare do that. It's a pretty fiscally responsible region that you're talking about. And so it's a straw man argument on his side, but so is it on Pritzker's side, where he's saying, right, we're never going to do these giveaways to billionaires, which has never, ever been on the table. The only person who proposed a massive giveaway to billionaires is Brandon Johnson, the socialist. He's the only one who proposed a big giveaway to billionaires. No one else has proposed it. The Bears haven't asked for it. None of us support it. I sure as heck don't support it. But it's a fake argument. And they keep doing this. And that's part of why I'm in politics, is we see this on issue after issue after issue. It's why I wanted to run, because let's just get the facts. I don't care about the talking points, whatever arguments you want to make, just put the facts on the table. And wherever that leads us, great. Let's make a decision and let's move on. This should not take 3 years and counting, all to lose a franchise that's the pride and joy of Illinois. This shouldn't be this hard.
No, it shouldn't. And your words are refreshing, so I appreciate you saying them. What do you think Bears fans misunderstood most about the negotiations?
Yeah, I mean, this is where maybe it's the Bears, or maybe it's just the lack of legislative leadership or executive leadership in Illinois, but nobody framed this. And that's something in politics. I'm a messaging guy. I'm a comms guy from before I ran. And you always want to frame it or control the narrative. The Bears didn't do it. They did that poorly, handled that poorly, and no one else has done it. And so as a result, you've got all these things that have popped up that are not actually even part of the discussion. So people talking about, tax giveaways, that's not part of the discussion. In fact, quite the opposite. You mentioned the site. I mean, it's when it was Arlington Park, which brings a tear to my eye thinking about my poor park being demolished. It never produced more than $3 million a year for the local taxing bodies, and so the Bears coming in would have jumped it up 5 times that much for the local taxing bodies. That's why they all supported this. It would be a huge benefit to the local taxing bodies, and then as a result, they could then lower their property taxes. So now it benefits all the property taxpayers in the region. So I mean, this just wasn't framed, and that's a bit on the Bears and their PR team, because this isn't the world they live in. This is mentioned before. The Bears live in this world where the media and the public just fawn over them. A Bears player goes to an event and everyone lines up, and the Bears, go to the press and everyone writes these glowing stories for them. Well, those of us in politics, that ain't how it works for us. You could be the nicest person, the best person on the planet, and some reporter's going to write a hit piece about how awful you are. That's just how the political space works, and I don't think the Bears recognize that because that's not the world they're from. And so jumping into this political space, they didn't realize that they just weren't going to get, the positive PR in the press and everyone lining up to say nice things about them. And so from the start, this was never framed properly. And so as a result, people are arguing about things that have nothing to do with the actual issue itself.
Yeah, no, you're right. All right, you kind of touched on the Bears side. Let's talk about Illinois. What's the biggest mistake Illinois has made during this process? Because I agree with you with the Bears side of it. I've been saying it for this whole time, and that they have not been able to frame the narrative. They have not been able to, get their story out there and make taxpayers understand what they truly were doing, what they actually wanted. That was their biggest fault. I fault Kevin Warren for that. I fault whoever, George McCaskey for that. They're not putting enough emphasis out there. So what do you think the Illinois process or biggest mistake was in the negotiations?
At the end of the day, you can boil everything down to this. This is the number one reason why the Bears are not locked in already at Arlington Park. It's Chicago versus the rest of the state. That's it. That is where the political problem is, and it has been. Lots of really smart political people were telling the Bears that from day one. Because of gerrymandering in Illinois and how extreme it is, you have an inordinate percentage of the legislative body that's from the city of Chicago. And while they're state legislators, and they should think of the state more than necessarily they think of the city, I do understand they're elected by the residents of Chicago. And so they're going to think about Chicago first. It drives me crazy, but I do understand the political realities of them getting elected. And so because no one's ever found a solution to that problem, we're still exactly where we started off. That why would a Chicago legislator vote to send the Bears outside of Chicago? That has been the number one problem, and frankly, the only problem since the very beginning of this process. Now, as a suburban political person, I will argue back that over and over, the suburbs and downstate have had to support legislation and things that are done that help Chicago maybe more than the rest of the state, because we're told, rightfully so, that Chicago is the economic driver for the state. And it is. I love the city of Chicago. This is not me bashing Chicago. We have happily done our part to support the city because that benefits the whole state. And so this was the one time that Chicago could have turned around and said, you know what, thanks for everything you've done to help us. We'll benefit still some from the Bears still being in Cook County. So, all right, we'll get on board with this. This was their chance to pay us back for decades of us helping the city, and they couldn't even do it one time. And so while I do understand the political reality, I really wish we could live in a world where at some point we're all Illinoisans, where we can all come together and say, you know what, this is best for the state of Illinois. But we just have never been able to solve that. And frankly, the Chicago legislators have identified that the city benefits slightly more by the Bears going to Hammond than they do by the Bears going to Arlington Park. Because if the Bears go to Arlington Park, there's enough of an infrastructure around it that people could fly into O'Hare, go out to the suburbs, and just stay in the suburbs. But Hammond is, it's friggin' Indiana. There's not a lot to do in Hammond, let alone Indiana, period. And so the gamble that the Chicago legislators are making here is the Bears go to Hammond. Most people will fly into Chicago, pop down for a game, pop back up, and enjoy the rest of their weekend in the city. That may be true, but Indiana is not doing this sweetheart of a deal to not keep those fans in Indiana. They're going to build up that region, and they're going to do it quick. And so what the Chicago legislators are missing here is that, yeah, you may benefit a little more in the city for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, until Hammond and every other region of Indiana builds up. And then once Gary Airport starts accepting the fans to fly into their airport instead, you're not going to see this benefit at all. And so it's a very short-sighted decision by these politicians.
I'm going to switch up the questions a little bit here that I had laid out because I feel like the
it's your podcast. I live in your world.
Well, this is a good segue on how you just worded that. So let's look at this from a perspective of an average Bears fan. Most fans don't spend their days reading legislation, right? I'll literally go on and I'll read the legislation that's trying to be passed. Not very many Bears fans are out there doing that. They're not following property tax negotiations. I am, because I love property tax. It's literally what I've been doing for 10 years.
Aren't we? Jeez.
Yes, exactly. And they're not analyzing economic impact studies. They just want to know one thing. If the Bears leave Illinois, how big of a deal is it really? Let's dive into that. So a good segue from what you had just said. If the Bears ultimately move to Indiana, what does Illinois actually lose?
Yeah. And this is where people aren't looking at the whole picture, because there are studies done that say that taxpayer investments into stadiums are not a good deal. You do not get your money back. I've read those studies and they are 100% accurate. And that is why I and everyone else agrees nothing into the stadium. The taxpayers should not be involved in that whatsoever. And by the way, the Bears agree with that too. But what everyone's missing is the economic development around the site. There's a tremendous amount of jobs and economic activity, which is what our state desperately needs. There is so much benefit around the stadium. And I'm not even talking about the events and the year-round benefits and the things we can host. I'm not even talking about the stadium. I'm talking about everything around it. That's jobs, that's vitality, that's movement. Even something as simple as this. We just bailed out transit because Chicagoland Transit was facing a massive fiscal cliff. You bring the Bears out to Arlington Park, that's riders on Metro. That's people going back and forth on pace. I mean, this is that forward thinking that you need as politicians, as elected officials, to think about how do we get the state growing again? Because that's been one of our biggest problems, as I mentioned earlier on. We just don't have that long-term focus, and that's what everybody's missing. That's what's going to go to Hammond, Indiana, instead of going to Illinois around the Arlington Park site. And so that's what people need to focus on. This isn't really about the stadium. It's about everything around the stadium. And frankly, you've got a suburban region here that has stagnated for a long time. Bringing that kind of vitality to this region would get this whole region humming again and bring so much more vitality and growth. And that's jobs, that's wages, that's opportunities. That's our kids going to college and then staying in Illinois instead of going to some other state where there's better opportunities. This is how you turn around the future of Illinois, is thinking big like this. But too many are thinking small and just thinking about the four corners of the stadium itself, even though it probably won't be square, but you get my point. You've got to think more than just that. That's what people are missing here.
Yeah. And, I've pushed this narrative out there because I'm trying to get the narrative. I'm trying to help the Bears here. And maybe we need to be hired onto their campaign team. I don't know, because no one's doing it right. But it's frustrating because so many people quote these economic studies that are so specific to just stadiums themselves, right? It's literally just an empty parking lot with a giant stadium that literally does nothing but maybe, a few hundred events a year. And it's not really driving an economic impact. But when you look at the new stadium sites that the NFL is creating, and not just the NFL, there's other, leagues that are doing it as well. They built this whole brand of economic area where you have so many things that, like you just said, drive things up. And SoFi Stadium to me is like a great example. Inglewood was on the verge of bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. I talked about it. 17% was their unemployment rate before SoFi Stadium moved in. Now that whole entire place has just completely flipped, and it is doing great. Lawsuits aside, because I know they're fighting about the infrastructure payments going back and forth, but whatever. Like, it has completely turned that area around. And Arlington Heights isn't as bad as Inglewood, but to just imagine what it would do for that area and then the outside areas around it as well. I mean, it's
economically, so people don't realize this, but one of the worst regions right now, when you look at commercial space, and they always look at that space and what's the vacancy rate. And then there's a lot of studies done and stories done about downtown's vacancy rate. And it is a problem. It's part of the reason why property taxes have skyrocketed. So I don't mean to diminish that problem, but what they miss is that the suburban vacancy rate in commercial spaces has been setting new records every quarter. And so while Arlington Heights and all the different cities around here are doing decent, the vacancy rate from a commercial standpoint is massive. And that's part of why our property taxes are exploding, because when you don't have that commercial space generating revenue, then it's the property taxpayers on the residential side that have to make up that difference. And so when you bring in the Bears, you see it right now in Hammond. They don't even have a guarantee that the Bears are moving to Hammond, and they're already using this in their economic development and in commercial spaces and trying to sell those spaces and fill those spaces. I mean, that's, again, that untold benefit that goes way beyond around the park. That goes to Schaumburg. That goes, heck, all the way up into Lake County. That goes all throughout Cook County. It gets up into Crystal Lake because it's still on the same train line. I mean, you see these benefits from an economic standpoint, and the suburbs desperately need that right now. And so, again, if you just have forward-thinking elected officials who want to actually solve problems, these are the kind of things they're thinking through instead of just the talking points.
So I'll go back to the question that I skipped then. Is there a realistic path to Arlington Heights?
There is. There still is a path. Number one, Indiana still hasn't had their biggest fights yet. As the taxpayers are starting to realize, I mean, Indiana gave a sweetheart deal to the Bears, and it was awful for taxpayers. And I think the taxpayers are starting to realize just what a deal was given, and that's a pretty red state. So there are political fights that are going to rise in Indiana that's going to gum that deal up. We don't have a lot of time here, but there's absolutely time. Now, do I have confidence that the same politicians in Illinois who have failed to do this for 3 years will somehow wake up and get this done in the next few months? No, which is why my one shameless plug, maybe it's time to change out those politicians. Because I got to tell you, if I get elected, I am absolutely going to call a meeting immediately and say, let's get this done. No taxpayer giveaways to the stadium, no taxpayer giveaways to billionaires, none of that. I'm not going to compromise on any of that. And we will still be able to get the deal done because unlike J.B. Pritzker, I don't even want to run for office, period, let alone be president one day. So if I do this, it's not about what's popular or unpopular. It's about what's the right thing for taxpayers and what's the right thing for keeping the Chicago Bears, at least in Cook County and in Illinois. Let's be done with this BS about them going to Hammond, Indiana.
Well, let's segue into that then. So if you were governor today, what would your message be actually to the Bears organization?
Yeah, I mean, we would immediately call them to the table. The undertone here, and I'm going to avoid getting too political, but our governor has been a hands-off governor. If you ever watch the way he operates, you'll see him talk, and he'll say, well, the legislature needs to do that. He's doing that with the Bears now. Well, the legislature needs to come up with a deal. It's not going to happen. If anybody spent any time in politics or in government or even just spent a day in D.C. or a day down in Springfield, that's just not how big things get done. You've got hundreds of people who are elected, let alone thousands of people who are on staff, who all have their own different ideas. A big deal like this doesn't come together unless somebody at a high level position of leadership says, here's what we're going to do, and puts them all around the table. And so that's been JB's problem for 7 years as governor. It's always somebody else's fault. It's always somebody else's responsibility to get something done. Our governor needs to step up and lead. And if JB can't do it, fine, then I'll go and do it. Step up and say, we're going to get everybody around a table and we're going to figure this out. And I'm going to lead from the beginning of those negotiations until the end. And if the lawmakers want to then blame me, if the Chicago lawmakers want to say it's the governor's fault that I have to vote for this, fine, I'll take the hit. Just as I'm showing now, as I'm taking the hit as running as an independent, I'm getting attacked by both sides. I have no problem getting attacked if it's for the right thing. We can get this done if somebody shows the political will. If J.B. Pritzker does it, here's what I promise. I will absolutely give him praise for it. I've already done it. When he's done some things that I agreed with, I gave him praise even though he's currently my opponent. If he steps up and does this, which he could do, then I will give him credit for it. But in the meantime, if he's not going to do it, then it's time to elect somebody different, and I will immediately call everyone on the table. And here's what I'll predict. It won't take more than a couple months to get this done. It doesn't take 3 years. It doesn't take a year. You could get this done in a couple months, and we would hash it out and get this done for the people of Illinois.
So what is the line? I think you kind of touched on it a little bit. What is the line Illinois shouldn't cross even to keep the Bears? Is it just giving them the stadium for free?
Yeah, I mean, no. The line we should never cross is, let alone giving them the stadium for free, it's giving them tax dollars even beyond that. They're asking for two things, and as governor, I'll give them two things. No more than that. Two things. One, they want the ability to negotiate those property tax payments with the local taxing bodies. And that's, by the way, local control. I am all for that. Those are the taxing bodies who are going to get the tax dollars from the property taxes. Let's give them that seat at the table and let them negotiate it. Every single one of those taxing bodies have stood up at press conferences and have publicly said, we back this, we support it. So if the taxing bodies all support this, then why the heck aren't we giving it to them? They're the ones who would either lose or gain from this. So if they want it, let's give it to them because they're going to gain from it. And number two, they want the infrastructure around the stadium, the sewers, the roads, the electric, all the things that we do as a state for every major economic development site. Let me amend that. Everything that every state does for major economic development sites in their states. This is common. This is normal. This is always done. And for a lot of it, it's already planned. We would just be moving it up earlier in the timeline. It's already planned. We've already got the money in the budget. We've got over $7 billion in the road fund and the infrastructure fund. The money is already there to do this. So those are the two things we would give them. That's it. And that's all they're asking for. That's how simple this is. And that's why I can be so confident that we could get it done, because their ask is simple and we could get that done.
I completely agree. I feel like I was on an island for so long, and it's great to see over the last year and a half that so many other people have come forward and have realizing just how frustrating this is and getting their voices out there. It's refreshing.
Well, I think so many normal people just don't pay attention to politics, don't care about politics. And I respect that, though I hope by November, maybe you'll pay attention to my race. But I do understand that people just don't. So to them, what they're thinking is, well, something has to be gumming this up, because why wouldn't they have gotten it done? Because most people, for better or for worse, think that their elected officials, their politicians are, down in Springfield getting things done. But that's just not how Springfield is operating right now, just like it's not how DC is operating. So both parties are screwing this up. It's Republicans in DC, it's Democrats down in Springfield. Right now, our government is ground to a halt. And that's why this isn't getting done. But because it hasn't happened, everyone just, their mind starts, well, it must be, it's got to be the billionaire thing. It's got to be the giveaway thing. And that's why these narratives have gotten legs and gotten so far, where on Twitter, I could get, 100 people come back to me. Well, it's all because of the giveaway. It's like, no, that's not even on the table. But people believe it because they have, to them, why else would this have taken 3 years? The right. idea that it could simply be politics that's stopping this is a foreign concept to people, but they've got to recognize how broken DC clearly is. That's how broken Springfield is right now, too. And that's why we're pushing forward this independent movement, because we've got to get beyond this left versus right. It's got to be about what's right versus wrong. And that just isn't happening in our politics right now.
Again, another refreshing statement. I really appreciate your logic in all of it. It's just it's so frustrating. But I think this is a good segue to this question, and you kind of touched on it a little bit already. So the stadium debate, it's really not about football. So to me, it's exposing larger problems. So what do you think those larger problems are with how Illinois handles economic development?
Yeah, so I got two things on this, and stop me if I get too long-winded, because you just gave me a chance to talk policy, and I love talking. So there's two things I want to point to that really indicate the problem in Illinois. The first is, well, this is a Bears podcast. Let's talk sports. The fact that there are no World Cup games happening in Chicago. And this was a Rahm Emanuel decision. This was not Brandon Johnson. This was a Rahm decision years ago. But he made the decision that the city couldn't afford it because FIFA was asking for too much. And let me be clear, FIFA is corrupt, and there's a lot of problems with FIFA. So I'm not going to take their side. And I don't know that Rahm even made the wrong decision. That because of Chicago's horrible financial shape that they've been in for decades, they couldn't afford to make the deal that FIFA wanted to make. And so I'm not saying Rahm made the wrong call. I'm simply pointing to that's part of the problem. The fact that Illinois is in such horrible financial shape, the fact that Chicago is in such horrible financial shape, you can't make deals like this. You couldn't cut a deal like Indiana cut. And I'm not saying that we should, but we don't have the ability to do so because our finances are so awful in Chicago and the state of Illinois. So that's the first thing that people need to recognize about the problems in the state. We just aren't fiscally able to make these bigger deals that other states are able to do. The second thing to recognize is that our economic climate in the state is so bad. The costs to do business, whether it's taxes, fees, regulations. We have the fourth most regulations on business of any state in the entire country. It is incredibly difficult to do business in the state of Illinois, and it's incredibly expensive, just like it's incredibly expensive to live as a person in Illinois. It's the same for businesses. And so that's why many of them have been leaving or opening up plants and locations in other states. So what Illinois has been forced to do is start to give tax breaks to many businesses to try to get them to come here or to stay here. And so you see these announcements every week, $50 million, $70 million tax break to so-and-so business so they can open up a plant in Illinois and create 50 new jobs or 75 new jobs. It's becoming more and more expensive for us to get these businesses to come here because we've got to give them larger and larger tax breaks. And we just saw, if you go on my social media, I put out a video on Thursday, whatever day you post this, I put it out on Thursday because we just gave out $23 million to ADM, one of our current businesses, who's a huge business in Illinois, and I love them. But we just gave them $23 million, not to really create jobs because they're only going to create 50 jobs. It's to keep the jobs we already have. So that's how bad Illinois is now we're at the point where we're having to give away tax giveaways just to keep businesses here, not even to grow, just to not shrink anymore. That's how bad the economic climate is in this state. And so while I know I'm getting into the weeds and its policy, so forgive me, but when we talk about the need to get Illinois growing again, to get our GDP moving, to get our wages moving, to create jobs, as you talked about with unemployment, Illinois has the worst unemployment in the Midwest and one of the worst in the entire country. These are the things that hold our state back, and it's why we can't get growing. It's why the Bears at a high level or small manufacturers are closing up shop and we're losing 80 jobs at a time. That's why this is happening. And so what you're seeing with the Bears is just one picture of the larger problem in Illinois. And as much as I love the Bears and I don't want to see them gone, what I really care about is that we turn around that economic climate in this state, because you look at all these businesses throughout the state that are closing. A manufacturer just closed this or announced they're closing this week. It's another 80 jobs that are lost. That's 80 families that don't know where their next paycheck is going to come from. That's a community that just lost one of the foundations of their community. That local manufacturer was sponsoring the Little League and doing things in the community because they cared. They were sponsoring the parade and the fireworks. Like, they're the bedrock of the community. And because our economic climate is so bad in this state, that's what's happening. And so look at the Bears, but look at your local manufacturers, your local farmers, your local small businesses, restaurants, retail. They're bearing the brunt of our politicians having such short-sighted views and not having a growth long-term mindset. That's what we got to turn around so we can start to have World Cup games in Chicago and Illinois and show off our world-class city and our world-class state on a world stage. Illinois deserves that. Chicago deserves that. It's time we start acting like the world-class state and city that we are.
Yeah, that's the real trickle-down effect, is when you get rid of that, and then it just affects and impacts the ripples that, it's like when a rock hits water and the ripple effect that just goes that hits everybody else. And
When you pay that bill down the road. I mean, I've been a small business owner for a long time, and I can tell you that the best analogy I can give you is a small business owner saying, no, I want to protect the money I have. I'm not going to go invest $100 into some marketing or training for my employee or, safer machinery or whatever it might be. So you saved $100. Congratulations. But a year from now or 5 years from now, when that employee takes a job elsewhere or that machine breaks down or you have fewer customers because they didn't know about your business, that's when you pay the price. And that's the problem right now, is we have these short-sighted politicians who go to their voters and say, I saved you $100. And it's true. But you see, they're not the ones who are going to have to pay the price for when that bill comes due 5-10 years down the road, because they're going to have moved on to something else. It's some other politician's problem. This is what we talk about with these politicians kicking the can down the road. They get to tell you on a TV ad how much money they saved you, and you go vote for them because it sounds good. But it actually wasn't the right decision, and your kids and grandkids and you are going to pay the price down the road.
I mean, that's literally the Soldier Field renovation in a nutshell, right? Like, I mean, you look at the Soldier Field renovation. We talked about this so many times on the show. Everyone's like, well, they still owe, $500 million. Well, no, the Bears and the NFL paid their $200 million off within the first couple of years of that renovation happening. And instead of owing the small portion it's not small portion, but the other $400-ish million that was left over, the state just kept kicking the can down the damn road and refinancing the bonds to the point where now they owe more than what was actually owed at the time of the renovation being done. Like, it's so ridiculous.
Well, we see this all the time in Illinois. I mean, the pension crisis, again, I'm going to do policy, so forgive me, but the pension crisis is the same deal, where politicians, to try to, balance the budget, air quotes, balance the budget, they'll kick costs down the road or refinance or whatever it might be. And this has been happening for a long time. As much as I want to blame J.B. Pritzker for it, it's been happening well before J.B. Pritzker. Rauner did it. Quinn did it. It went way before Pritzker. And in Chicago, it's not all Brandon Johnson. I mean, it was 4 mayors before him who also did it. This keeps happening, but for we younger Illinoisans and younger Chicagoans, we're the ones now who are paying that bill. And that's why I say to young people, get involved. It's why my campaign is built on a whole bunch of younger people who have got involved, who are helping push this movement forward, because politicians in DC, politicians in Springfield, and politicians in Chicago have been spending your money for years, and you don't have a seat at the table. Tell me what politicians you see out there are millennials or Gen Zers. They're not. They're all twice as old as a millennial. I mean, they're the ones making decisions, but we're the ones who are going to pay that bill. And that's why, as much as I know younger people don't want to get involved in politics, we've all got way more fun things to do with our lives. These politicians are spending your money right now. So if you don't get involved, you're going to pay that price one way or another. Get involved and get a seat at the table, because that's the only way we're going to stop that from continuing to happen.
Good point. All right. Throughout this conversation, you have pointed out mistakes, missed opportunities, what you think Illinois should have done differently, maybe what the Bears should have done differently. So let's close this out by putting you in the decision maker's chair. If voters, specifically for the show, Bears fans, elect you governor, how would you approach one of the biggest economic development negotiations in history? And I'm going to segue that to a more direct question. So, let's go back in time and say it's January 2026, and you're the governor. Kevin Warren picks up the phone, calls you, and says, let's make a deal. What's your first move?
Yeah, first thing is you got to recognize what the field looks like. And you've got a Springfield legislature that doesn't want to have to eat this. They don't want to bear the responsibility for this. And you have a Bears organization that's hired some really good lobbyists that they're frankly not listening to. And you've shared some frustration with Kevin Warren, and I do share many of those frustrations. When I've been told Bears ownership, they're very loyal, which is why they've stuck with Kevin, but they've been frustrated too. They've wanted this all figured out. You recognize what the playing field is, and it was very clear that you needed someone to be an adult in the room to step up and say, I am going to lead this. And so that's the thing. That is the thing you will see different from me. I'm going to step up and say, if this is back in January 1st of 2026, or if I still have a chance to do it in January of 2027 after we take out the current governor, I will step up and say, I'm the governor. The buck stops with me. We are going to get this done, and I will take responsibility. We have not heard that once under J.B. Pritzker for this or anything else as governor. It would be a refreshing change of pace. And here's why politicians don't want to do that, because if it doesn't play out, then you pay the price. But listen, I never wanted to run for office. If I step up and take responsibility and I fail, then vote me out, because I didn't want to do the job anyways. All right, so it's not about me being a politician or wanting to be in office for forever. I would love it if someone else would run as an independent and I didn't have to. So, but I'm going to take responsibility, win or lose. Your governor needs to lead. And so that's what would have looked different. I would have recognized that, you know what, even though Kevin Warren has a great reputation for being this guy who got it done in Minnesota, even though the facts don't really bear that out, but whatever, I would step up and say, you know what, it's clear that this isn't going to happen unless I get it done. And that would have been the one subtle change that everything else then would have looked different, because then I'm calling the meetings. I'm not sitting around saying, well, because this is what Pritzker did. Well, I think the Bears talked to the Speaker of the House this week, so we'll have to see what happens. It was a lot of, well, I think this might happen, or maybe so-and-so is talking to so-and-so. There's been mass confusion and chaos because nobody knows who the hell is talking to whom, and that has been what has gummed this whole thing up, because there's no leadership. That is the clean, succinct difference that would have changed the entire ball game, pun intended. And so that's what I would have done. And then, of course, I've already talked about the deal that I would have pushed forward to make happen. And if I have to make sure Chicago legislators get something else that they need to balance out that they're voting for once to help the suburbs, fine, then you work out that deal. But again, that takes a governor who's willing to lead and work out a deal and make it happen.
It's usually the people who don't want to lead that end up being the best leaders. So that's a good starting point, I think, right there for you.
I mean, my wife and I, trust me, we made calls to so many people to say, who else would do this? Who else would run? We knew we needed an independent candidate. We had all the data. We did the market research. We knew there was a lane here. We knew there was a need here. But I'm 40 years old. I got a 2-year-old. This wasn't the time. I've never had an ambition to run for office. I love being the guy behind the scenes. I want to sit on my deck and smoke cigars and tell the politicians how to do their jobs. So this is never has been my ambition. But my wife said it, and she was right, and some other friends around me said it, that if no one else is willing to step up, you've got to do it. For the sake of your kid, if you want to be able to look him in the eyes and say that I did my best to give you the best Illinois that you could grow up in, then you got to step up and do it. So it's not what I wanted to do. It's honestly not what I want to do, but it's why I'm going to do the right thing, because I've already paid a massive price for stepping out as an independent. My family and I have paid a huge price for this. So it's proof that we're going to do the right thing no matter what the cost is.
So you already laid out what you think a successful deal looks like for taxpayers, what it looks like for Bears fans. So let's go to 5 years from now. Where do you think the Bears are playing? Where is their stadium? And I should say, let me rephrase that, because it's 2026, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, that 5-year mark, they're still probably going to be at Soldier Field.
Yep.
So let's make it 8 years from now. Where do you think they're going to be playing?
I'm going to say dang you for that because I had a very easy answer. Because 5 years from now, they'll still be at Soldier Field. I mean, if you're asking me to prognosticate, I don't do Kelshi or any of those, betting sites. So, I wouldn't put money on this, but it boils down to November. Are the voters going to wake up and make a change in the governor's office? I hope that they will, but you're asking me to predict. Do I think that voters are going to mass wake up and vote for an independent? I really hope that they will, but I'm running up against a billionaire. He is likely going to win this race because if any poll shows me within a couple points, he'll just drop another 100 mil and bury me in ads. So Pritzker will likely win. Pritzker will still want to run for president, which means he'll have no interest in making a deal. And so then that means by default, the Bears either are staying at Soldier Field or they're going to Hammond, Indiana. So if I was to put money on it, I'd say in 8 years, they're in Hammond, Indiana. And I hate it. I've used the throw up emoji a lot on my X account because I hate the idea of it, but that's the path we're on right now. Unless somebody does something major to change it, hint, November's coming. That's the path we're on. In 8 years, they're going to be in Hammond, Indiana.
So go check out, we're wrapping this up, but go check out Colin's website. And if you like other, issues that he is running on, guys, go out and spread the word, because that's really how you're going to defeat someone who has billions of dollars, is getting the word out. It's just going to be a way for us to share and use your social media accounts. And the more people that share, the more people that retweet, the more people that, spread his word and his name, that's how he's going to have a chance. And look, I'm not putting my political stuff out there right now because I haven't read your website, but it's something I'm going to do, because everything that we've talked about on social media, everything that you and I have talked about regarding this Bear Stadium, it's logical. It makes sense. And I really appreciate you coming on and just laying out your thoughts here. So I'm going to leave you with this last question. What's your one word? You get one word, and I know it's going to be difficult because you like to storytell.
I like
one
to tell.
word to describe the Chicago Bears stadium situation.
I mean, you were kind enough to kind of give us a heads up some of the things we might talk about. So I knew you were going to ask this, and I still don't have an answer that's one word. I'll go with this: cowardice. I mean, it is a complete lack of cojones from any of our elected officials to just stand up and say, I'm going to get this done. And so that's the word I would use. We need elected officials who will say, I'm going to go step up and be a leader and get this done. And we just haven't had any of them who are really doing it. Even you see Brandon Johnson doing his best to kill a deal. We don't have anybody out there who's willing to be a leader. And this is what I see in our politics at every level. And that's what I'm trying to change. So I'll go with that word. I'm sure I'll regret it. Someone's going to come after me for calling these politicians cowardly. But you know what? The truth is the truth.
I don't think your everyday people are going to feel that way. I think no matter what side you're on, if you're choosing an aisle, I think most people do find most politicians to not be refreshing and just being able to speak the truth or the facts like you've been laying out here. And I do appreciate you doing that. Colin, we appreciate you taking the time to join us today. I know it took us a little bit to get this going, but I'm glad everything got moved in the right direction for you last week. This has been a fascinating conversation, not just about the future of the Chicago Bears, but about what this entire stadium saga says about Illinois, economic development, and the decisions our leaders have to make moving forward. But before we let you go, I want to give you the floor, whether it's your campaign, your vision for Illinois, where people can learn more about you, or simply a final message to Bears fans listening today. What would you like to leave our audience with?
All right, let me just shamelessly put myself in the category of somebody I have no business being in the category of. Let's talk about Ben Johnson. You saw the entire Bears franchise turn around with one hire. For once, the Bears didn't cheap out, and they went out and got the best option, the best guy for the job, and look at what it's done for the Bears. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm Ben Johnson. The dude is a once-in-a-generation mind, and I'm so glad he's our coach. But you can see the kind of change we could see when you hire someone, when you elect somebody who actually just is going to go and work their butt off and get the job done, who has no ulterior motives and just going to focus. And you can tell, I know the issues. Go to my website. I know the issues. I know the policies. I live and breathe this stuff. That's the kind of turnaround that Illinois could have. And so if you want to have a state that you're proud to be from, Most people don't tell people around their friends around the country or the world, I'm from Illinois. They say Chicago and maybe even sometimes don't even say that. If you want to be able to be proud to be from the state, if you want to have a job that's growing in wages faster than inflation, faster than your costs are going up, we're going to have to turn things around. And one hire can make that big of a difference. So please get involved, pay attention to who your elected officials are, and get out there and vote. The next election is not that far away. We're talking about it's whenever you post this, it's the end of June. So we've only got a few months until the next election on November 3rd. Please, guys, pay attention because who you vote for matters. You wouldn't think it, but who you voted for in the past is what's led to the Bears maybe leaving Illinois. So it's time to turn that around and go elect some politicians who are actually going to do things that work out for you.
Again, thank you again for your time, guys. I'll have his website in the description. It's really easy. Go check it out. Colin, again, thanks again for joining us and sharing your perspective.
Thank you for having me on. I mean, this is your podcast, so honestly, I'm really grateful you gave me the space and the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, again, the conversations that we were having on social media, it was just too much in my same mindset. And I was like, look, this is actually someone who it might have a chance to get their foot in the door politically and make some changes. I'm like, let's get him on the show. It just made too much sense to me. Now, again, regardless of where people land on the stadium issue or even in the political landscape, these are conversations worth having because these decisions being made today could shape Illinois and the future home of the Chicago Bears for decades. And again, beyond the Bears, this is a thing that could shape the whole entire state. So for everyone listening, be sure to let us know what you think in the comments. Are the Bears staying in Illinois? Arlington Heights still the best option? Are you just tired of this whole thing and you want it to go away? Is Chicago truly back on the table? Would you support a deal to keep them there? Drop your thoughts in the comments section. I love to continue that conversation and keep the Halas Huddle community going. And if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and again, be a subscriber and go hit Tally Brand up on X/Twitter so you can get into the raffle for the free phone case or /hat that we're giving away. We'll continue covering every twist and turn in the Bears Stadium saga, plus plenty of Bears football coverage right here on the Halas Huddle. Colin, again, thank you very much for all of you guys listening. Bear down, claws up.
Go Bears.
Bam!